Welcome to another. Sorry. Wanted to welcome you here. Today we're going to be talking about offshore racing. This is going to be very cool. Very excited about it. Before we get started, though, I've got to thank Mount Gay Rum. Mount Gay is been our sponsor now for quite a while, and they're sponsoring this one as well. So, and in fact, Mount Gay is actually going to be sponsoring the racing section in the print version of SpinSheet. So check that out when you get a chance. Without further ado, I'm going to bring on Molly, and there she is. Hey, Molly.
Hey, Sharp. How are you? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you.
Do you want to know one super cool thing about Mount Gay Rum sponsoring the racing section in SpinSheet?
Of course.
They were the very first sponsor of the racing section in SpinSheet. I don't think it was in 95. I think it was in 1996. So they were the very first sponsor, and they're coming back. So what's old is new again.
Wow. Full circle.
Yeah. Mount Gay Rum has gone well with sailors for a long time.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this is going to be a really cool topic.
It is. We have Corinne Smith and Don Snellgrove from the Bermuda Ocean Race on tonight, and we might have Mike Lemkel too. We weren't sure if we were going to need the extra person. We weren't sure if Don was coming. He was a little late, but anyway, we might even have more guests. We've got lots of questions and lots to talk about why they're so into ocean racing. But what are you drinking over there? Good
question. Hold on, I'm waiting the 2-minute mark. Hold on. Okay. That was when we got kicked off last time. So I'm having a Mount Gay in ginger.
Oh, lovely.
What are you having?
That's what I'm having. Why does mine look so much lighter than yours?
Oh, because you've seen me pour a drink.
I know. It's gonna take the enamel off your teeth, dude. Exactly. Cheers. Anyway, cheers, ching ching in this corner.
Hold on, let's bring our guests on so we can all
do it.
All right, let me hide that sucker, and I'm gonna bring our guests on. Dun, 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 dun. Hey.
Hi, Don.
Hey.
Hi, Corinne.
Hi.
Welcome to SpinSheet Happy Hour. You guys are both first-time guests.
Thank you. This
so
is
you've
exciting.
been doing a lot of talk about the Annapolis to Bermuda Ocean Race, haven't you?
Yes, we have been promoting our race. We've been talking to as many people as we can about the A to B in 2022.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what you're having over there for happy hour first before we jump into our racing questions.
Well, I'm having a dark rum and sparkling apple juice with a little bit of mango and papaya mixed in there. Just whatever I have in the refrigerator. And I'm having it in my favorite.
Sounds very summery.
Yeah, I'm having my favorite Crazy Crab Marina class. I have a great A to B story involving the Crazy Crab, which is down in Reedville, Virginia. So, yeah, that's what I'm drinking.
Awesome.
How about you, Don? Did you have time to make yourself a drink before we got started here?
Well, I did. I can't say it's what I normally drink. It's pink champagne. My wife and I are celebrating.
This is a first.
Well, she got her first vaccine recently, and so we decided that it was worth breaking out a bottle of champagne after waiting a year.
That's
cool. Great. Pete, that's worth celebrating. Cheers. Can you guys try to clink your glass toward the center here?
Here.
It takes a little practice to figure out where the center is, but
it's funny, Molly. Pete Carrico is commented that he's at the CVS in Catonsville, standing up for his first COVID event.
Well, cool. Here's to you, Pete. Let's all get vaccinated and move on with this life, right?
Yes. Here's the vaccination.
All right, Sharp, you going to go into the green room so we can start talking about ocean racing?
I sure am. Just to let you know.
And by the way, you can come out of the green room anytime because we know that you are an experienced ocean racer and you had a good experience. So maybe I'll just call you to hop on at one point. So in the meantime, we'll let you be the man behind the curtain.
I can do that. Just so you know, we have 3 guests. Michael just tuned in. So
awesome.
Good.
I'm going to go into the green room, and I'll throw Michael on the screen, too.
Cool beans. I see his name. I see water. He's not quite with us yet.
Looks like he's man overboard.
Yeah,
Mike.
already the race hasn't even begun. Well, while we're I bet he's coming back here.
No, he was there, but now he's not.
No, he's gone.
So
Okay. Well,
why
don't we get started? And if Michael pops back on, we'll ask him whatever question we happen to be on there. So I like to ask everyone who comes on SpinSheet Happy Hour, we like to start at the very beginning. If you tell us a little bit about your sailing background, what kind of sailing you do now, and your ocean racing experience. And so, Corinne, we're going to start with you.
Okay, well, I'm sort of a late in life sailor. I started sailing in my late 30s, and my very first ocean race was the Annapolis to Bermuda ocean race with Mike Lemkel on his boat. I didn't have much experience. I had no experience doing offshore racing, but they needed a nurse and a cook, and I'm a nurse and I can cook. So I did this race and I got hooked. That was it. After that, I've done some Newport races, Marblehead to Halifax, a couple MAC races. So I've done a lot of offshore racing. But no, I still do the big races, but I really enjoy the distance races in the bay. That's like my favorite kind of racing. You know, the St. Michael's, the Oxford, the overnight type of races. Those are my favorites.
Do you have your own boat?
I do. So I have a little Ranger 23 that I bought for like $250, and I rehabbed her. And she's out there. I raised her for frostbite. It perfs really high. I can't even beat the Cal 25s, but you know, it's a fun little boat, and it's a real classic Gary Mull design. So I'm kind of a boat geek, and I enjoy just getting out there and racing, and you know, getting around the water. I really one of my favorite things really is to sail with women. You know, try to get all my girlfriends together and really try to promote women in sailing. So when any opportunity I have to get my friends out with me, I try to do that.
All right. And welcome, Michael.
Hey.
There you are. I think is this your first time on the SpinSheet Happy Hour?
It is. Can't you tell?
I remember you were Heidi's personal bartender one time, but I don't think you were the guest. You were just You were just handing things to her.
That's right. Yeah.
So anyway, well, welcome. We were just starting at the very beginning with sailing experience and how everybody got started. So I'm gonna ask Don next if you will tell us about your sailing experience, what kind of sailing you do now, and about your ocean racing experience.
Sure. I grew up in Connecticut and did sailing as a kid. I learned at a summer camp. And I did sunfish sailing for a few years, like as a 10 and 12-year-old. And that gave me the bug enough to where I bugged our parents to maybe buy a boat. And they ended up, of course, they went to the dark side immediately and got a power boat. But that still allowed me to go ahead and take the power squadron courses and through the seamanship and the celestial navigation. So by the time I was 18, you know, I was comfortable on the water on small sailboats and power boats. But I went into the Air Force. I flew F-4s and F-16s for 20 years, and I was mostly overseas and really didn't get a chance to get on the water hardly at all. But, you know, I retired, and that's when I said, okay, it's time to go back to the sailing love, and did some racing on small boats up in Boston for a number of years. I got a bareboat license. And when the opportunity came up for my wife and I to move down to Annapolis, where our kids had all ended up, I said, aha, this is the opportunity. Okay. You know, get a boat, get a house on the water, put boat on end of dock at the backyard. And that was the master plan. And we did that, except that now I have a 39-foot boat. I don't know really how to sail it. You know, I sure as heck don't know how to race it. And that was in 2011, and it was a slow process. You know, Mike Lemkel was involved with us on a few of those races. We started out, you know, trying to get a crew together and racing Wednesday nights in Round Bay on the Severn River and trying to figure out port from starboard and getting, you know, an inexperienced crew, to include myself, how to learn how to race the boat and just survive on a Wednesday night. And we slowly worked our way from that time in 2011 by the time 2014 came around, I felt like maybe it's time for us to go ahead. We'd done some bay races and those things. We decided to enter A to B. And that was a big deal for us. We'd never done an offshore race before. We had a crew that was mostly the Wednesday night folks that we'd amassed, over the last few years. And we did it. I mean, it was exciting. It was all new. I think only one person on the boat had ever raced offshore before. So there was we had done a lot of prep beforehand. We'd done sea trials and we'd done night navigation and we'd done man overboard drills at night and everything else, but it was still our first time offshore. So we did the race in 2014. We enjoyed it thoroughly. We did the race again in 16. And then in the off years, we would do like Annapolis to Newport. And in 2018, we decided we're going to not do Bermuda as part of A to B, but take the boat as part of the Atlantic Rally for Cruisers. And we sailed the boat to northern Italy. And that was a longer venture, as you might imagine, with about a month and a half in the Mediterranean. But it was done, surprisingly enough, with mostly the same folks that had started out on Round Bay, 4 or 5 years before. It was just a slow evolution over time, but we knew we got along well together and we thought we could do it. And so that's where we're at. We still, this year, we'll take our 39-foot Daler. It's a German-made boat, and we'll race it up to Newport, and we'll do the race Marblehead to Halifax in July, and then we'll prep ourselves for A to B in 2022.
All right. For anyone just tuning in, whenever someone says A to B, they mean the Annapolis to Bermuda race. I don't want to assume that everyone on this call knows Annapolis to Bermuda or A to B. And Don, you chronicled your trip across the pond and in the Mediterranean for SpinSheet, and we were so grateful for that. Anytime you want to write for us, you just send me an email, and we're all over that. You're really good at it. We really enjoyed it. And so, Michael, your turn. Why don't you tell us about your sailing background, what kind of sailing you do now, and what kind of ocean racing you've done?
Well, let's see. I started out with a little 27-footer and learned how to single-hand it. And once I did that, I was hooked. Some of you may know Beth Berry and Pam Morris and a few of that other crowd. We did our first Bermuda trip in 2003, and it sucked. It is the trip by which I measure all offshore passages. We had gale the entire way. We were the slowest boat. I've never seen 20-foot waves since then. It sucked. And I've got a whole lot more stories there. But the next year, apparently it didn't suck enough because I did my first transatlantic. And on a slow boat to hell.
Really making this look very appealing, Michael.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Sign me up.
Yeah, right. I mean, well, here's the thing. You learn a lot about those things by joining different crews, and you don't always know who you're going to get with. And this crew was, well, interesting, without going into too many more details. But it took us 21 days from Annapolis to the Azores. So you can kind of guess that, I mean, it probably took a little longer than it should have. But the thing I really learned to love about offshore sailing was something that I learned on that trip, and that was that you get into that rhythm. And I get more sleep offshore, I think, than anywhere. 4 on, 4 off. Yes, you're waking up a lot, but you do get sleep. The rhythm was great, and I do have to say we ate well. We had several storms, but they didn't last a week. They lasted 12 hours. We hove to. We took our time, so it was actually a very good practice run. And then in 2010, people like Corinne talked me into taking my own boat. and that was a whole different story.
Yeah, I don't know. I talked you into it,
but we had quite an adventure there. I was sick with the flu the day we left, and luckily I was able to recover. If I hadn't recovered by the time I got to Norfolk, they were going to take me to the emergency room. But luckily I recovered, and we got to Bermuda just fine. But the stress level of getting that boat ready, I'm pretty sure contributed to me getting so sick. It's a whole different story when it's your own boat. And I don't know, I've done pretty much all but maybe one A to B since then. So I got on the committee and started doing the safety inspection, which Don is doing now. And, you know, you learn a lot over the years about what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, we'll get to the safety stuff. Anything else you want to tell us about your offshore background?
Oh, that's enough for now, I guess.
That's enough for now. Okay, Corinne, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Can you just give us a little history about, I think it's a cool history of the Annapolis to Bermuda race. And for those who don't know, can you just give us a brief history of the race?
I don't have my cards in front of me, but it started back in the 1970s with just a few, I think we had, 14 boats in the original race. And it's just grown and grown over the years. I think there was only 1 year where we didn't run a race, and then last year in 2020, we did not run a race. So there's a lot of sort of pent-up excitement about the next race. It's an exciting race because it's almost like two races in one. First, you have the race down the bay, which is challenging. You know, those of us who race on the bay, which side you go on. You've got the currents. You've got lots of traffic coming up and down the bay. So first, you've got to get out of the bay. And then once you get out of the bay, then you've got to sort of navigate that, the Gulf Stream, it's got its own challenges. And then once you get through the Gulf Stream, then you've got to just determine your approach to Bermuda. And, Bermuda is a lovely island that's completely surrounded by a reef. So trying to figure out exactly how to get into Bermuda and deciding, do I take the north approach, do I take the south approach? There's a lot of strategy to it. So it is a challenging race. We like to think we're the more difficult of the two races to Bermuda, the Annapolis to Bermuda race. And we've grown. Last year we had 43 entries. So we expect that in 2022, we're going to see a lot of people coming out to do this race. The other cool thing about this race is that we're a very accessible race. We are a race that, we are open to, the super fast race boats, but we're also open to the family cruising boat. I think I was having a conversation with Charles before this about how he had done the race on more of a family boat that didn't have the experience doing a lot of racing. We've had multi-hulls, we've had Naval Academy boats. We're scheduled last time to have a schooner. We're going to have the Pride of Baltimore. So, it is a race, is a little bit of something for everyone in our race.
Dawn, what excites you about such a race and what keeps you coming back?
Was that to me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, Corinne mentioned that this race, unlike, let's say, the Newport to Bermuda race, has more challenges. It packs three different things all into one race. You've got the true challenge of getting down the Chesapeake Bay, in the first 24 hours, which is, shallow water, fluky winds, some currents, lots of commercial traffic, and being able to navigate all of those challenges and get out the bridge ahead of your competitors is something that it's not just ocean racing experience that allows you to do that. Sometimes it's local knowledge. It's being able to understand the depths of the currents or the depths of the water and how they affect the currents. It's a tricky part that you don't see in the Newport to Bermuda race. And then, of course, you've got the part going across the Gulf Stream. how are you going to transit the Gulf Stream? How will the weather be different? Where should you transit it? And then after you get through that second part, now it's just a flat out run. Get yourself to the east side of Bermuda to get to the finish line. And what's the best way to do that? And so I find the 3 different phases of the race to be exciting and unique. And you just never know how it's going to work out. That's part of the challenge.
Mm-hmm. So, Mike, sounds like you've had some, unpleasant ocean passages, yet you keep coming back to a race like this. What's exciting about it, and why do you keep coming back?
I think, the thing about sailors is they have a very short memory. And you only remember the good stuff. And 6 weeks later, I'm ready to go back again. Hey, I'm ready to do the Newport race with Don this year after it sucked last year. 4 days of beating into 20 knots. But anyway, the thing as I alluded to earlier, the thing that I really like about offshore is the disconnectedness in a lot of ways, and the rhythm that you get in your little floating community. Your world all of a sudden gets very small, and but it's I don't know, it's kind of a Zen thing maybe, but there's certainly challenges and all that, but there again, I get the most, like I said, I get the most sleep I ever get offshore. Some people say I get too much, but
you are not the first person to tell me how well they sleep offshore. I've been interviewing people who sail offshore for, like 17 years, and I've heard that a number of times, how well they sleep offshore, even if in 4-hour increments. So
yeah, and it's not even the drugs.
So, Corinne, I'm going to let you address that question again at the end, but I have another question that I've been saving for you, because you and I spoke a little bit over the phone about it. And that is, when sailors feel like they're almost ready to do an ocean race, what are their apprehensions? What are they afraid of? And what should they be afraid of?
Oh, I was afraid of getting seasick. What if I get seasick? What if something breaks and I'm out in the middle of the ocean, and what am I going to do if something breaks? Basically, that's it. What if my boat breaks, and what if I get really seasick? The really great part about the A to B race, and many of the other races that go down the bay, is you have a lot of bailout points. If you get going and you find that something's not working, or you need to readdress a problem, you've got some time. Back in 2012, when I did this race for the first time, the race started, not much wind, we're just kind of bobbing along. We get about to Thomas Point Light, and we realized that the solenoid on the propane was bad, and we weren't going to be able to cook. And this is at the beginning of a week-long race. Well, fortunately, we had some sterno aboard, which was kind of a weird thing to have, but we had it. And I was able to cook for the next 5 or 6 days with sterno. We had all this food that had been prepared but needed to be heated up. And, that was the kind of thing that if we didn't have that, it could have been a very long race. I mean, eating cold food the whole time. So that's, I guess, the thing is, you hear all these different stories of things that go wrong, and then you start thinking, well, I don't know if I'm ready for this. What happens if I get out there and I'm miserable? But the good news is you're only going to be miserable for a couple of days. So there's that.
Do either of you have anything to add to what Corinne had to say about things you
and that was on
things people are scared of, things they should be or shouldn't be scared of out there?
It's one of those things where you literally have to take it 5 minutes at a time, and not worry about the stuff that you have no control over, because you don't have any control over it, and that's the beauty of it. That's what keeps us coming back, I think. And if you you have some experience, if you know what to look for.
Oh, I think we lost Mike, or he's frozen up.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right.
Yep.
Well, oh, he disappeared. All right, so Don, I'm gonna ask you if there's anything that you feel that people are afraid of that maybe it's not even the right thing to be afraid of. And I'm gonna ask you about safety stuff later, but this is just more in general.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are afraid of seasickness, and there's valid reasons to be, apprehensive about it. But, with the proper medications, and there's a wealth of medications out there now, whether it's Bonine or Sturgeon or ginger snaps or, whatever you want, just about every kind of med has some beneficial effect. But the good news is that seasickness doesn't last forever. On a 6 or 7 day trip all the way to Bermuda, it's a rare person that is sick, to where they don't feel like they're 100% more than 1 to 2 days. And so it is something you're going to get over, and you have to remember that the meds certainly help. And if you take some of these meds, for example, in the Chesapeake Bay, prior to getting out into the Atlantic, that certainly can help too, and ameliorate some of the effects that you might feel. But I mean, I get seasick, especially if I haven't done an offshore race in quite a while, which is the case now. I mean, nobody has really, with COVID and everything else, and I'm going to be aware of it, and I will take some meds before I get out into the Atlantic, because, I just want to get through that phase quickly and get back to where you thoroughly enjoy, as Mike was saying, the blue sky and the ocean, and the fact that your world is 39 feet long and it's about 13 feet wide. And that's the way it's going to be for the next 6 days, 5-6 days.
One thing,
Michael, would you like to complete your thought that you were in the middle of when you froze up?
I can't remember where I froze up, but I will add on to what Don was saying. People often hear me recommend Zofran for seasickness. It's really more of an anti-nausea drug, what they give chemo patients, but it's something that you don't have to take proactively. When you're feeling sick, you can take it and you will feel better. It isn't quite the same as seasickness meds, but it definitely takes the edge off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Corinne, I have a question I want to ask you directly, but it seems we have a couple questions from the audience. So if you guys, we're kind of at the halfway point, it's a good time for us to take a couple questions from the audience. So Sharp, if you want to go ahead and pop those up. What tips do you have for choosing a cohesive and competitive crew? That's a good one. Who'd like to answer that one? Don, you're on.
Choose the crew beforehand. Don't wait until you meet people on the Friday before the race begins, and then say, well, yeah, he seems like a pretty good guy, or she's pretty nice. I think this will work. Go and experience, at least a 24-hour type cruise all day, all night. You're required to do this anyway as part of, the experience that you've got on the boat. And you should be doing sea trials in the spring anyway to make sure the boat is ready and your storm sails are ready and you know how to do man overboard drills and everything else. Make sure that the people that are on the boat that you're going through all this practice with are the actual people that are going to be on the voyage. If you do that, you'll get a feel right off the get-go as to whether or not this is a crew that will get along well, or, is there some person that you can see already is just not going to jibe with the rest of the crew? That's the time to do that. Don't wait. I can't tell you the number of stories that I've heard of, people that meet on the dock and then join the crew, and then, they're forced to be together for 6 or 7 days. I saw this when we did the Atlantic Rally for Cruisers. We got to Bermuda, and there were a number of boats that were coming from Norfolk like we were, and then there were a bunch of boats that were coming from the Virgin Islands. We all got to Bermuda, and it was amazing. 3 different people on boats that came from the Virgin Islands, as soon as they landed, got off the boat and left, and we never saw them again. And that was pretty much because either they or the skipper said, this is absolutely not working out, and we're not going the rest of the way across the Atlantic. And it was people that they did not know, that, that was just opportunity people that joined the crew at the last minute. Don't put yourself in that position. Make sure you've got sufficient time on the water in your boat with the crew beforehand, and that will help you out.
Yeah. Do either of you have anything to add on to what Don had to say about choosing your crew?
I would just add that sometimes you can't choose your crew. And in those instances, you've got to be really good at pretty much accepting pretty much anything that goes, and trying to be real accommodating. Some people on here watching me are probably laughing, wondering why I'm the person actually saying that, because I don't always preach that. But but you go along to get along.
I would just add, kind of accelerate to what Don was saying. It's really important to make sure that the crew you pick has the skill set that you need. I've been on races where we had people who were like, well, I don't do any of the cooking. I won't do cooking, or I don't do foredeck, or, somebody who really has a great attitude and who is excited about doing the race or the return, but doesn't know how to drive. Like you get heavy weather and they're like, I can't do this. And, that's a problem, because if you're having a race or a return and it's heavy weather, you can't have 1 or 2 people who are doing all of the helming, or one person who's in charge of doing all the cooking. It has to be a combination of a great attitude and someone who's got the skill set to be able to be crew. I've been on a couple of races where, like Mike said, you don't always choose all the crew, and you end up with a crew who's aboard, but they're not doing anything, and they're nice, but they don't do anything, and then it falls on everybody else, and that's a tough race, or tough passage.
You have another question for us, Sharp? How many crew overboard practices with crew do you do before the race? Thanks, Pete. Hope you got your shot.
I can talk a little bit about this. What we generally do, and Mike has been involved with this. He's been part of our crew on several races, and he's aware of this. Is we normally pick the first weekend in May. The weather's warm enough to where it's pleasant out on the bay, but it's still a month before the actual race begins in June. So anything that you find with a boat or with a crew, hopefully you can sort of fix or modify, certainly with a boat that you can be. And what we'll do is we'll go out and we'll do man overboard practices in the day under pretty benign conditions, whatever the wind conditions happen to be. And I will put with us, we sail with a crew of 8, because we have 4 on and 4 off on our boat, because we're carrying a symmetric spinnaker, and you really sort of need 4 people if you're going to actively race the boat with a symmetric spinnaker. But all 8 of us will get a turn at the wheel to do like a quick stop maneuver, which is a standard basic, day man overboard drill, and let everybody get a feel for the helm and how they're going to approach it, and how they can come up to the person in the water at slow speed from the right wind apparent angle and all that. And then we'll expand from there. We'll now do, okay, the spinnaker is up and it's daytime. And now somebody goes overboard, and we throw a life jacket overboard. It's called Ralph in our boat. And Ralph goes over the side, and then we'll go ahead and have people practice dousing the spinnaker and then coming back on up to the life preserver. And we do it without the engine. And the reason is if the engine isn't working, we still have to be able to practice it. So we'll tack our way back up to retrieve Ralph. And then from there, all in part of this sea trial weekend, we'll go into the sunset activities. And once it's nighttime, we'll go ahead and do the same thing. We'll do, nighttime man overboard drills. And the culmination of that is nighttime, 4 guys down below, 4 guys or girls up in the crew, and we'll throw Ralph overboard, with a small light simulating what the PFD is. So really, now you've got 4 folks sleeping down below, and you've really only got 3 on the deck since 1 is overboard. So that person is just an observer to critique now. And we'll wait 2 minutes for all of the people from the man overboard call for those 4 people that are down below to go ahead and retrieve their PFDs and then get back on board. And of course, we're doing this with a spinnaker. So all this time is being spent going downwind because we can't, on our boat, get down that spinnaker with just 2 folks along with 1 person on the helm. Once those people come up and we get down the spinnaker, now it's a long ways back to that life preserver. But if we've done our procedures properly and we have a man overboard drill and we've marked the spot, and in some races they may even have an AIS, receiver on there, then we'll practice going on back. And it takes a while to do that. We'll at least do that 2 or 3 times. We won't do it with all crew, but we'll do it with a watch captain, certainly. And this is a long description, but it culminates with that. When you can do it at night with 4 of your crew down below with a spinnaker up and then retrieve, and it's not always easy, then that's the final practice that we do.
Sharp has one more question before we move on with our regularly scheduled program. Ideas on watch schedule. Thanks for the question, Rick. Thanks for listening in. Watch schedule. Corinne, Mike, you guys want to address that one?
Mike can go ahead because you would probably say the same thing I'm going to about the, my experiences have been really that like our 4 on 4 off with the dog watch around dinner time has worked well, but really it's whatever works best for the boat and the crew.
Have you guys worked with others other than the 4 on 4?
I have, where you have enough people to cover it, you do 3 on 6 off. Or a lot of times you'll do a longer watch during the day and maybe 4-hour watches during the day and 3-hour watches at night. Mm-hmm. And it staggers it. There's a bunch of different ways. I would say the most important thing about that is find a watch system that you are comfortable with, but stick to it. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen this where some people are, gung-ho and doing it, and other people are very sick or whatever, and the structure starts to fall apart, and you can't let that happen. Absolutely cannot. So you've got to stick to the schedule, even if the person that's supposed to be on watch is sleeping it. You just got to keep it going.
Well, it's also important to start that watch schedule as soon as the race starts. Everyone's really excited when the race first starts, and everybody wants to be up on deck and be part of what's going on. And what happens is it's 24 to 36 hours getting out of the bay. And if everybody's up and excited, then everybody's going to be tired at the same time. And you don't want to get down to the Bay Bridge Tunnel and then everybody's exhausted. So it's important that when the race starts, say, okay, we're on, you guys are on watch. Go down below and lay in your bunk. Even if you're not tired, just lay there. Get on that routine. The sooner you get your body used to whatever the new sleep schedule is going to be, the sooner everybody's going to gel as a crew.
Yeah. The one thing I would say to it, and we harp on this a lot, is the watch schedule is published. Everybody knows exactly when they're supposed to be on cockpit. And, one of the things as a skipper that I look at is I want to make sure everybody on that oncoming watch is fully dressed, PFD on, in the cockpit at 00. If the watch changes at midnight or at 4 a.m., they are there and they're ready, and they need to get up, whether it's 10 or 15 or 20 minutes prior, depending upon the weather conditions. But The last thing what I want is somebody who's not out there on time, because all they're doing is keeping the current watch from getting down below and getting their needed rest. And it's a discipline that you expect on the boat, and I insist upon it. And everybody knows that. And so you make sure that you get up early enough in time to get your proper gear on and out. The only exception we'll make is if we've got someone severely ill with seasickness or whatever, and in essence, that person just needs to stay below. But other than that, maybe it's the military, in me, we expect the watch to be up and ready at the time that is published on the schedule.
I agree with Don with that, and I have to say there's nothing worse than having to use an air horn to wake up the next watch. But that said, it's interesting. I do a bunch of deliveries every once in a while now, and I have other crew with me. And it's interesting that a lot of people don't expect to wake up the next watch. They expect to set their alarm and wake up themselves. And I would have to say that I think it's way easier. The folks that are just ready to get off watch should wake them up.
Yes,
instead of
I agree.
letting them, because a lot of people don't know that. So it's an important thing to wake them up, and wake them up with plenty of time for them to get dressed, but also to at least have that 5-minute conversation when you're switching the watch to say, hey, there's a ship over there, this is going on, whatever, so that it's a nice handoff.
Good point. Yeah.
Corinne, I wanted to ask you about some of the logistical challenges of planning such a race. And you don't even have to talk about provisions right now, just the logistics in general. You were talking about a few things that people don't think through. Unless, feel free to talk about provisions too, if you want to.
So people say they want to do the A to B race, and they get very focused on getting the boat ready and getting crew. But you're going to do the race, you're going to end up on an island, and you're going to need places to stay. You're going to need provisions for the return back. You're going to need a return crew. That's something that I've done the entries chair position for the A to B race for 3 races. And you'd be surprised at how many people, the race is at the beginning of June, people in the middle of May say, oh my gosh, I don't have a return crew. What am I going to do for return crew? So there's a lot more to it than just your boat and the crew to do the race. You do have to think about where you want to stay in Bermuda. I had a conversation with Don, and he says, oh, we sleep on the boat, not a big deal. But for some crews, that's just really not going to work. If you're in a smaller boat, or you just want to be able to get off the boat and have some space. So you've got to think about that, and you've got to think about it several months ahead of time, because Bermuda is an island. There's a finite number of places to stay. Hotels are very expensive there. So there's just a lot of other moving parts that have to be thought about when you're going to do an ocean race, or even just a passage, or what's going to happen when you get there. And it is another country. It's not the United States. So you are, in a foreign country that you have to consider. Things are going to be, food's going to be more expensive. If you're going to provision, where are you going to cook food? Are you going to try to cook it on the boat, or are you going to try to prepare it ahead of time? Just lots of little things that have to be thought about. Now, with the Annapolis to Bermuda race, one of the great things about our race is that we do have an entries chair who helps each of the boats work through some of those logistics. It's not just about getting your money and, okay, we'll see you in June. The entries chair works through with each of the boats, making sure that they have a checklist of everything that they need to bring with them, as far as passports and letters from the skipper for people flying in, lists of places to go buy food, places to stay, contacts in Bermuda, where you can, get a reasonable accommodation. So we do try to work through all that with the entries, or with all of the skippers. We try to be a very, like I said, accessible race, not just to different kinds of boats, but to both inexperienced and experienced crew and skippers, trying to match these people up. We have happy hours so people can get to know each other. And it's fun. You end up in Bermuda, and it's one big party in Bermuda. So it's fun.
Mm-hmm. Great. Don, I know you could, this is a big question, and I know it's sort of your job as the safety officer for the race, but can we talk a little bit about boat prep for an offshore race and some of the things you need to know?
Sure. I think, you can go online right now and look at the safety and equipment regulations for past years, and they don't change that much from year to year. We take our foundation as to what U.S. Sailing is putting out, and then we can modify that based upon our experience and what we know are key issues for the A to B race. But I would definitely take that. It's a file. It's an Excel spreadsheet. It's a number of pages long, and even now, even though we're 14, 15 months ahead of the ocean race in 2022, you can go through that and just sort of see, what are some of the issues that I have on my boat that, would cause us to have to make some changes or upgrades or whatever else. In many cases, your boat will probably comply. And I give a few examples, like the height of your lifelines on your stanchions. A lot of production boat builders will build them to the necessary heights, but it's worth checking. There are some things on the boat that you won't have. You're probably not going to have a life raft, right? You're probably not necessarily going to have a bilge pump that is manual, that's activated from down below, not in the cockpit. Those are the kind of things that you can look at and figure out, how can I comply with this? And please feel free to give me or Corinne or anybody on the committee an email or a call about, what are some methods to go ahead and do that. Most of the changes that you would need to your boat are not going to be, earth-shatteringly expensive. And most of them make logical sense if you're going to be, offshore, 500 miles or maybe 375 miles from home, from shore. But we're more than willing to help address some of the questions. But the time to start looking at those requirements are now, especially if you don't have a life raft and you need to rent one. You don't want to wait to the last minute to rent a life raft because, you may not find one available, for example.
So we talked a little bit about crew overboard drills, but just how about prepping your crew in general, training your crew in general? Mike, do you want to address that a little bit? I mean, you guys go to safety at sea. What do you do to train your crew?
It's really important that your crew has a sense of humor. There is nothing worse than being stuck on watch late at night and nobody has any good jokes. But yeah, sense of humor and, just being able to work well. I don't know. That's about all I can think of right off the bat.
Yeah. How about you, Corinne? Crew training, prepping your crew?
Yeah, I mean, obviously going out and practicing with your crew and not just doing a practice. One of the skippers from the 2018 race had a great idea in that we did I was on a return crew, but she had a race crew on the boat. And when we got to St. Mike's, they turned, and this was for the St. Michael's race over Memorial Day, they turned around and they just did an overnight and just did a point-to-point distance overnight just to kind of go through those watch schedules and do some practicing. So the other thing I think I would say too is that, encourage your crew to get the safety at sea, to get a first aid CPR certification. Make sure that they've got those things, early before it gets time to, get the crew.
Mm-hmm. So we're almost at last call, and I know that there are lots of events surrounding the A to B. Can you tell us a little bit about, you're not just an ocean race, you have events from now through when the race starts in June of 2022. So can you tell us a little bit about those events and why they're cool and what they do for people?
Well, we try to build camaraderie with all of those boats that enter. The entries will open in June 1st. Between now and June, we're hoping to have a We'll be Mike and Don and I will be at the Spring Boat Show seminars talking about the A to B race and also just offshore sailing. And then we will probably start, once the race entries open, we'll start having happy hours for the skippers over at EYC. That's an opportunity to kind of network. Then in the fall, we'll have a weather and navigation seminar. We'll have a safety seminar. I'm getting these out right. The safety seminars in the fall. We'll have a weather and navigation seminar in February. So there's a lot of events coming up.
How can people learn more about this race?
Well, you can go to our website. We have BermudaOceanRace.com. They can go to the website to find out more about the race itself, and also the entry information is there. There's also contacts there at the bottom of the webpage. So if you have questions about safety, you can email Don. If you have questions, or Mike, and you can if you have questions about the race and entering the race and how to get ready, you can email me just to find out more about it.
Well, you know, just in watching the comments as we've been talking tonight, it's there are so many other topics that we could address. This is like impossible to do in a 15-minute chat over a drink. But it is, well, first of all, it's fun to see them because they've run the gamut between vomiting and being dehydrated and then just making jokes in between. But there's also some productive conversation going on there about, you know, replacing your standing rigging or various watch schedules and things like that. So I'm hoping maybe we can bring you guys back to a happy hour at some point later in the season, and we can talk about sort of where everybody is, or maybe narrow it down more to a topic or something like that. Because it's been great to have you guys here. I always love hearing about ocean racing, and so people can still sign up for this race, right, Corinne? For how long? How long do they have to sign up for this race?
Well, they can't sign up yet. They can't sign up yet. June 1st, entries will open. So they should be waiting anxiously for June 1st. And when it happens, they should log on to BermudaOceanRace.com and register. The sooner you register, the sooner you become one of those elite skippers and get all those benefits of being in the Annapolis Bermuda Ocean Race. You'll get emails from the entries chair and from me. You'll get invited to happy hours and all kinds of cool stuff. So the sooner you get registered, the sooner you get all those benefits. June 1st, look for the entries to open June 1st.
So I would say one of the more informative sessions we do is the one in October, I think, that Don will be doing, basically on how to get your boat ready to comply with those rules, because you've got one winter left before you go. So that going to that seminar is really helpful when you have those questions, when you have no idea what you're doing, what you're going to be doing for the winter. You'll get your ideas and hopefully be ready in time for the race.
All right, good. Well, hey, cheers, you guys. Thank you. Clink glasses here. Try to go for the middle. Thanks so much for being our guest. We've learned a lot from you guys, and I look forward to meeting with you in person again very soon. But in the meantime, Sharb is going to kick us into the green room. Don't hang up. We're going to have a party and a debrief in the green room. And for anyone out there in our audience, thank you so much for coming to SpinSheet Live and listening in, and have a safe and happy weekend, everybody. And we'll see you next week. I forget what our topic is. It involves sailboat racing and crew. So come next week too. We'll be here at 5 o'clock. And thanks to Mount Gay. So we'll say
thank you guys.
Bye for now. And thanks everybody. Sharb, are you there? Are you coming back?
Yes, I'm gonna throw you guys into the green room. So goodbye.
Okay, bye.
Don't leave because there is a party in the green room. Always a party in the green room. Anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in. This is really great, and I just want to give one shout out to about the Annapolis Bermuda race. I did this in 2012. It is, you know, if it's not on your bucket list, put it on there. It is just a fantastic experience. If you've never been offshore before, it's just great. And the folks at A to B really make sure you're prepared to do it. boat prep, crew prep, all of that, and just really had a positive experience with it. So I'm just telling you, if you can, go do it. It's worth it. And with that, I do want to just once again thank Mount Gay for sponsoring this SpinSheet Happy Hour. We will be back next week, and I hope you will too. So have a great weekend.